I was not at our last session, but I did watch the recording, and I really loved a lot of the stuff that you had to say, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and do some coaching. And so yeah, I am the other main support on the team. I've main Mercy and Anna, and a little bit of Moira I've played, and I've really been trying to hone in on Lucio, like Amaya as well. And so I think we've been playing Lucio consistently for about a month. I should have looked at how many hours I had on him now. And so I'd done like a good, we've watched the videos and, Lucio tips and XYZ, but it's like there's not like any solid content. So I'm really hoping to get some good one-on-one conversation going and just learning from you today on how we can kind of not maybe min-max a character a bit more and pay more attention to things rather than just like blindly wall riding into the team and trying to tips on how to like maybe get beat faster or recognize situations a little bit faster to respond to, etc. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think I'm gonna start with start really basic for myself. So I think that, in my opinion, they're actually important settings. Like most of the time, I'm really flexible about settings. I think not running at least these two is troll most of the time. Like this setting's really nice in that like it lets you kite out while doing damage, right? So like, I guess I can complete training range. And then I think the settings are like it's a no, yes, yes. I think that's what it is. But it's for Lucio specifically, I think like the most important settings for sure are your backwards wall ride and the jump off, like what I don't know what it actually is called, like the
speed one.
Yeah, like because it basically automatically does what like good Lucio players used to. So that setting was like I think added maybe a year or two ago, but like when the game first came out, like everyone just did this. I was like, but the really good Lucio players were always doing this because the speed actually changes to, like you look on the other side. Obviously, I can't look at myself from a third person, which feels kind of bad, but like the way I look if I do like this versus like actually doing like just consistently, like even if I'm like hovering on the wall like this, is a lot harder to hit than someone who's doing this and this, which is, I don't know, I feel like there's like three ways people move. Some people are like awful about it and they still wall ride, which is like that's really bad. You don't want to do that. You pretty much want to always be on a wall unless it's like a very open part of the map, in which case you're probably in a bad spot. But like, so and then there's people who like they hold wall ride all the time. This also isn't great. Like, it's good sometimes, I guess, if you're afraid you're gonna fall off the map if you let go, hold. But otherwise, I don't hold. So I think like getting wall riding down is one of the biggest things, and getting your aim down with wall riding, I think that is like the second thing. Where it's like you brought up already something that I think is like something a lot of people get confused with, or how like building up beat. Honestly, it'll get better the more you play the character and the more you get comfortable. Like I think the best way people should build up beat is by doing damage. A lot of people like think they should heal more than they do. I don't think a lot of people I don't think a lot of people underheal. I think underhealing on Lucio is like basically not a concept unless like your other support's dead and you're like actually still just trying to speed your team through. Even then, I think that's most of the time right. So settings wise, I think that's the first thing I want to go over is like, I think that the second thing is very important because it allows me to do stuff like, God, these walls are kind of awful. Looks like a good spot to go around here. Like it allows you to do stuff like this. Like if you didn't hold it, you would still be able to like keep tapping, but like if you wanted to, you could hypothetically, right? Like this is considered wall riding forward, and then like wall riding backwards is nice because it lets you kite, right? Like while you're backing up, you're still able to shit out damage, and you can always like hop up to random distances, do whatever you want. Other important things that I want to go over in the training range. I mean, I think getting down his shot pattern's really big, and like that, like I think honestly, don't expect to like hit like majority of headshots on like even moving targets, like, but just starting to get down like how many shots you're landing is big, and that leads like, I think it's really good to honestly play him in deathmatch. I think he's like one of the supports that deathmatch does a lot. Him, Zen, and like Ana and Bap are probably the four supports that in deathmatch you actually learn something on. The more and more you just play him in those 1v1s, you'll become more confident, and it's like, I think the best playstyle on him, like people will be like, there's aggressive Lucio and then playing with your team. a really good Lucio player just does both. No one actually like just hard trolls it all the time or like plays with the team all the time. And if you do, it's because you just like stopped learning or you just got comfortable. We don't want to get comfortable. We want to make uncomfortable plays and get better at the game. So I think going into that is a really good way to get really good. Like, I think deathmatch is one of the ways I got like really, really good at Lucio. Like for a while, I was probably like gold or plat, and then I just sat there and every morning before I played ranked, I would sit in deathmatch once I hit like masters. And until I told myself until I won like 3 deathmatches, I wasn't allowed to play ranked in masters. And I like started at some point just like winning like 20 to like 5 in like deathmatches. Like people weren't even catching up because I was like once you get really good, like your damage is really high and you can do like unexpected things. So I would queue into ranked games. Like it warms you up for ranked or scrims if you do like deathmatches. That's only if you really want to focus on like doing damage, which I think that's like the most undervalued part people don't understand about this character. It's like right, like if you like I'm standing still and the bot's standing still, but like when I was playing a lot, like it was always things like this, and that's a kill. And it's like that's always a kill. And like you can just shove it in their face.
That's the boop melee combo, correct?
Yeah. And that's like even if you don't always need the melee, honestly, in my opinion. If you can like lead your shots a little bit, that's always very nice. Otherwise for training range things, I don't want to go over anything else. Yeah, you can practice your wall riding. If I like, I don't know, people. I guess there are probably people who are bad at it. But like it just comes with time, and like I think getting used to it, like doing things like you can watch. What is their name? SK. I think SK is one of the funniest ones to watch. Where like they're pretty much always doing like impractical rollouts is what they call them. But like you want to be able to do things like this all the time. Like your movement should look similar to this because my hitbox, like my head is moving all the time here, and also I can still lay out my shot pattern, right? Like if you lay out your 4 shots and then you start to do it, like it makes it really irrational. And honestly, like I'm okay with missing like a shot or two. Like if I like throw only a shot and I get hit, like I'm down to back up. So like that's really important. Otherwise in this training range, not super a lot I would go for here. I think getting used to this shot pattern, I think damage is something I'm gonna try to focus on a lot. I go over stuff, but yeah, so for that, does anyone have questions about like controls or even like deathmatch or anything like that, like ways to like regiment practicing damage? I think that is like probably the most misunderstood thing. It's like when I watch a Lucio and scrims, like once it gets like pretty high level, like in lower ranks, like you still have the problem of speed boost and stuff, which I'll go over later, but I think like the most basic understanding is like a lot of times the teams Lucio that's doing more damage is building up beat faster and they get maybe another beat a game. Sometimes I've even seen like an extra 2 beats a game because like one of the Lucios actually plays Lucio and like the other ones maybe like a Mercy or Brig main and they're like we have to play Rush because everyone else is playing Rush. That's not a good reason. Don't ever do that. Learn the character because you want to, because your team has wholeheartedly decided it.
Nothing's gonna stop me.
Does anyone have any questions? What's up?
Momboom, I'd just like to say that we are missing karaoke for you.
You guys have karaoke night, huh?
Not necessarily a scheduled thing, but occasionally.
And I wish it's the best. Is someone recording it?
No. You missed my heartbreaking rendition of Total Eclipse.
It was great.
As far as questions, is this specifically just for like training ground? Like,
I mean, you can ask anything, but I'm gonna go over like different parts. But yeah, I'm down to answer anything.
Yeah. You said for the settings, you said it was off on, or? I
think I can pull it up again. I've started to have to memorize my settings because I do it kind of off on. Yeah, I think it's like the right part.
I had. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because then, right, so the off one, I personally like to just press it to swap. Like, I couldn't imagine holding this if I wanted, like, one thing and then letting go. That seems like a lot of extra.
It is. I think it totally is.
It's like kind of funny, because to me it's like the opposite of the Mercy setting, where it's like you can turn the toggle beam on. Like, it's the complete opposite. Turning that on makes the game harder. Just turning the Mercy one on makes the game easier. No way. I don't know who in their right mind uses that one. Probably someone. But yeah, so those are the settings.
Oh, let's break it.
That's settings, damage, and kind of the way I like to warm up. If you want to like individually get better at Lucio, like if you feel like and then because of that, let me see. One of the big things, like, so that's kind of the deeper cause or root. the symptom of that will be, and symptom's a good thing here, it's not a bad thing, like getting sick. The symptom of that is you should be able to 1v1, let's see, you should be able to 1v1 most characters on this list. I would say, to me, when I feel really warm on Lucio, the only characters I'm afraid of are Hanzo and Creed. That's it. Those are the only characters I'm afraid of taking 1v1 with. And that's how comfortable you should try to push for. On damage and support. Tanks, I mean, I don't know. I don't try to 1v1 tanks a lot. But I would say from like the majority, anything cut from like here on, I would say like you should be confident in fighting anything but Korean Hanzo, because those characters are messed up, man. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
How do you deal with the Sombras that are kind of on you?
Yeah, so you want to get used to like that's a really good question. So when you play against Sombra in the dry fights, you should not overextend yourself. Like I always try to put myself. Let's see. I guess there's no. Where are the friendly training bots? I guess here. Oh, they're dead. But like I would try to put myself here, so that the only like, and this happens in a lot of maps. Like hypothetically, like you want people in front of you. So if Sombra's in front of you and she's hacking someone, you can hit them with ease because you're not under pressure. If she's hacking you, it's from like here or here. And normally when I start to take that pressure, like, or I guess I mean they can also be like treat both sides as the same thing, just mirrored. Like if they're coming in, that means you can do this. Like you can walk towards your team and keep right. So you break even if you get hacked. I think one of the biggest things people don't understand is like once you're hacked, it's not doomed. Like if you get hacked and you can like start to close LOS like this, like you're still okay because then she has to keep coming forward and you can just keep doing things to her. In non-dry fights, when she has like hiding, I think is one of the really important things people need to do, and people kind of I don't know, they don't understand actually what hiding means. Like they'll be like, oh, like if your team, you want to find a spot whenever you're hiding, your team's like here, you want to be like here, and you still want to do something. That's something I think a lot of people don't understand. Is like you don't have to be able to help them, but you still want to be like here kind of shooting and like aiding like this. So it's like right, I'm not gonna get hit by this EMP unless it's literally put there, but most likely for them to EMP, if my whole team's in this whole range, it's gonna be like here or even like in front of them, right? Like it's never gonna hit me if I'm like just shooting someone who's like playing on the side, right? Like finding really cheeky angles, and you always want to try it. In my opinion, I like being on the high grounds when I do it. It allows me to do like things where I like beat out and then I can drop into them, and it feels better. It just feels better, me elevation wise, to always go high to low and low to high, just because like that's what you should do on most characters. But yeah, does that kind of make sense? And then like Sombra honestly to me should just feel like a easier to deal with tracer. Like it's she's not gonna move around as much, so you don't have to like predict, but it's just a lot of like you want to put pressure on her without taking pressure. So like I think if you're having trouble with her, it means that you're either not near your teammates to where like you're able to be protected, or you're not near hard cover. Like so, right? If the hack goes through, I have hard cover, but otherwise, like as soon as you start to hear the hack, you can hear what sound audioly. I don't know. You can hear like, which side it's coming from. So once you hear that like thing right away, it's like you want to like put these shots and you want to kind of spread them out. As to how far you want to spread them, what I do to my DPI. Like as to how far you want to spread them out, that matters on how good you are at like assuming. Once you get better at it, you probably want to start to make it smaller so you can just do more damage then. But at the beginning, like just like honestly, like flicking a bunch of them this way, you'll probably hit her. And if not, like she's at least pressured, right? And she honestly, a lot of times like Sombra players like hack and they keep doing the 80 strafe, which means that like if you're also 80 strafing and putting out on ones, like you're in a pretty good spot, because if like things get bad, you can heal yourself. If things get really bad, you can like amp speed away, like things like that. So does that make sense for how to deal with Sombra, or do you have like a specific question past that?
Yeah, well, no, I mean that's good stuff, and like I know I try to spy check whenever there are Sombras. Like I'll just turn around and throw random bullets just to see if I can smack her with one, and it works a lot of times actually. But I guess mainly, but the hardest part that I have is it becomes like a game of chicken when a Sombra's holding her EMP for your beat. And it's just like, and then you're just like, well, I want to wait for the MP because she's just going to cancel my beat. But then you come to a point where you need to use your beat. And it's like, well, I've been holding it. I need to use it because something needs to happen. And of course, she just EMPs it. So, do you have any kind of insight or any kind of, like, is that just not something that should be happening? Like, is that just a Sombra to be holding her EMP all game versus utilizing it to help her team? Is that not something that should be happening often? Like, What do you?
Yeah.
think about that?
I think that's an interesting question. I think there's a couple takes. I personally am fine with like holding my beat all game if they hold EMP all game, because like normally I would build right like in a cough map. Like I'm probably gonna build 1.5 to 2 beats, and they should have built like 3 to 4 EMPs. And if they're not willing to ever send that EMP, like I saved my team from 3 or 4 ults. They just haven't. They just don't exist. But they would have.
Up the tempo.
I also think that like something you can do is like it's very timing based. So like on this team specifically, you're probably gonna want to look for timings. Where, like if you send her back and you know like so Sombra's probably one of 2 ways. There's the correct way and the incorrect way, and that's. But honestly, there's people even like in like top 500 GM that play Sombra incorrectly. Like if she's putting her translocator really close to her team, like right. So again, like if we're fighting here and here, and like behind that wall was like a mega room or something, like. And she's always going back to there, I wouldn't look for his play. But if she's like doing the weird like, oh, she's playing like off to the side and she keeps translocating to there, if you force her out and she translocates, I would just instantly like call for an amp speed beat and then like full send on their team. Because even if they do EMP the back end of it, you most likely get a kill. And the fact that your team's able to close distance with the speed and your team has bonus HP. Your team is now faster and has bonus HP compared to a team that is playing
engaged there.
Yeah. So that's like the only way I would try to use it otherwise. Otherwise, I like to use beat pretty flexibly, like in the mid fight or the end fight. But like if there's a Sombra, the game becomes a little different. Just
I must have this track on.
she kind of brought up. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was like, yeah.
So the next thing I could go over, I went over damage, how I like to warm up. I think the next thing for me is like movement, and movement kind of was part of that training range thing, but like guess practice, like always wall riding or like pretty much always finding things like do. I think movement is really big in like getting down this AD. Like I've dodged shots from like you can dodge like so many things by like tightening your AD, and especially on Lucio, because like you can start to swap it up like this. Like I have a really bad habit of it. I think it's a good thing to do. Some people think it's a really bad thing to do, but I swap my heal and speed very often. Yeah, like so it makes it very hard to hit me, because if you get used to like someone shooting you at this AD speed, but then they just keep doing this, like it makes it like you don't have to constantly hit it. I think you should for the most part stay in speed. And like I use the general rule of if I think I could die, so like if there's a McCree looking at me and I have like 100 HP, I'm swapping to heals, or I'm swapping to speed till I get to close to the corner, and then I'm swapping to heals like right here. And that's really big for me. I think 80 strafing is good. Some people like the stupid like there's like the thing that you look like this, and like from up above, like your head's basically in the ground. That looks kind of silly. I sometimes think that's kind of funny to do. Like you're like trying to.
I do that on Ana.
I do that on Lucio all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's amazing to do. I think it's a funny thing to do. I would not do it in like a serious game, but I do it like if the game's already won or the fight's already lost, and just like makes the other team like go kind of crazy. Otherwise for movement, 80 strafing, I think learning how to like take fights in a really, I don't know if I'd call it creative way, but like you pretty much always want to be taking fights in a way where you're like, if you're able to come off of one wall and go to the other side, like I wish I was on a map, like an actual map where, like there's tight doors. It's kind of okay. But it's like if you can ever like put pressure on someone that's like playing up here, and like you're able to put out like a spray or two here, and then you're able to cross, so it'd be like something like that, and like you're able to keep crossing, and like right, it doesn't even have to be like perfect wall riding. It can just be like hops off like this. Like it just makes it super difficult because they have to keep going from the left to the right to the left to the right. And personally, I like to do, I call it like a mini off angle, where like if my team's walking up the stairs on this side, I try to be on this side, and then as they start to go up on this wall, like I'll be on this side just to make it like really obnoxious when people try to peek my team and like do damage. Because I do think at the end of the day, like Lucio's damage plus his speed boost is like pretty much all you want out of his dry fight kit, other than like I guess hitting sick moves, but so yeah, so that's kind of about movement. And then I think also with movement, like getting really good at like always letting go of the wall and coming back like real it's big. And I think knowing like how to escalate and de-escalate, so it's like going up and then coming back down. Also, like you want to pretty much always flick is something I've realized I do naturally, and I didn't tell people for a while. They were like, "Oh, my Lucio movement looks similar," and I was like, "Does it?" Like, anytime you can like flick it off the wall a little bit, like it just feels cleaner, and it also just looks better. Like, so right, like don't look at the wall is probably the first thing. Like if you're actually in a fight, don't be like looking here and trying to do this. Like be looking out here and putting out pressure. I think that's one of the things I always see people. It's like they're like, well, I don't know the wall's there. It's like, well, why don't you know where the wall is? You should know the maps. The game's been out for a while. Like unless you're really new, you should know like where you want to go and not even have to look at it, because it gives you then like just such a big FOB. Like Lucio and Mercy, like pretty much all the main supports to me. Like right, so Lucio's the main support. All the main supports to me, like one of their biggest things that they can give is like defensive vision. Like you should be able to pretty much see the whole fight. Like right, as Mercy, like you should be flying up and like pretty much able to see it. As Brig, like you can hold up your shield and have that third person. Like Lucio's advantage, like you can be pretty high up like this. You can honestly even be lower than this, but like honestly, I try to be up as high as possible where I'm still in aura range of my team and still like right, because then I can be like, oh, there's someone to the, like I can call the fight. Right? I can be like, there's one left, one right, 3 mid. Like let's rush like mid or let's rush right, or maybe like me and Genji will go up here or something, right? So
let's break it.
Does that make sense for movement? Does anyone have any questions about that kind of stuff?
This is a really dumb question. I should know the answer to this. Can you like really quick just map out the aura range? I know the circle, right? But like for some reason, I like when I'm wall riding, I can't see like the downward. So the Y axis, I guess, aura range.
Like that. I mean, you can still see it. I don't know what. I'm confused. I'm kind of.
When you're wall riding, it's a right. So it's an X. You can see the X axis.
The vertical range.
Right.
Oh, it's like a sphere. I'm pretty sure it's a sphere or cylinder around it.
So
like,
can you
how
like
to map it out?
Yeah, it's like show like how far it reaches downwards.
You might need a workshop code for that.
Yeah,
I think
Okay.
for a better visual, probably a code or some kind of image online that shows it.
I mean,
yeah, I'm never sure. Okay, I'll look it up.
I mean,
I'm
also
never
you
sure,
can
like,
just
how
look at
high
the
I
number
can go.
and just assume. I would try to be like, I like the rule of like, I use like tanks as an example. I'm like, I like to be like 2 tanks above my tanks if I can, if possible. But,
Okay.
And then on the maps that are like shorter or tinier, right, like King's Row, you can't always be 2. You can't always be like two people above someone. It's like on those maps, like shorter maps, like I try to be 1 above.
Okay.
It's like, or like just right above them. Like if this was my teammate fighting, I'd be like up here helping them, and then if they needed, right, because then that still gives me a really nice boop to push people away. It gives me also the opportunity, like if you're hovering up here still, like you can also hit. Let's see. Like I can also hit like off of here. Like if I mean, I guess you can stand up here. This is like the lazy way that I've been playing recently because I haven't been playing as much. But like, right, like also then you have the opportunity, like if someone gets in their face, to push them in, which is like small victories. Like you don't always want to push people in. That's kind of something I'm gonna go over next with like abilities. But yeah, I would say you positioning wise, like just try to be like I like the rule of being a tank or 2 above the head of my tanks or above the head of whoever I think I need to protect at that moment. So. And that generally keeps you in the range. I know that.
That's good. I appreciate that.
Double kill.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I don't know. The aura, like, I don't really focus too much on aura. I just look at, for me, what has worked very well is looking at just I guess I can't put my mouse over it, but like where the number is in the middle of my screen, just tell me how many people are there, and I'm like, I can like figure out based on that very quickly, like, right, like if I'm like, oh, I want 3 people in there right now, I stand. You're like, oh, I only have like 2 or I only have 1, but I mean, it's because they're dead. But, like, hypothetically, like, I break LOS with them, it's like, you can, like, quickly, like, look around, like, take your shots, look around, and then be like, oh, like, I need to go more this way or this way. So, like, back up and have everyone, like, match your movements.
Oh, let's break it. Good as
Okay. And then from there, I mean, his abilities, I think you guys know what they do. I'm just going to talk about something that I think people don't do as often, or misconceptions.
Get you healed up.
Pretty much always be on speed. I think that's something that it sometimes gets reiterated in content, sometimes it doesn't. But, like, you pretty much only want to be on heals, A, if your other support needs healing. Like, if someone's, like, super crit and you can actually save them. And even if you do heal, like, you can just swap it up. Like, I wouldn't say it's, like, permanently this, but
Check this out.
I have, like, VODs of myself, I'm pretty sure, where, like, the majority of my GM plus games, like, both Lucios are, it's, like, 75% plus of the game, they're on speed, and, like, it's normally less than 20, they're on heals. And it's, like, when they are on heals, it's like this, like, we speed in, and because of that, like, but there is good times to swap to heals, so you want to, like, speed your team into them, and then swap to heals once you're on top of them, right? Like if you're, and if they, especially if they don't have a Lucio, this is like the biggest thing to do. Like if they're playing Brig, like you just have to speed them until the Reinhardt hits the Reinhardt with hammer, right? And then after he gets that kill, or once he gets there, you can swap to healing because now he's where he needs to be. And he's never gonna get out of that. And then right, if he gets booped, or if like you guys kill their Reinhardt, then you go back to speed till he gets to the next target. I think it's like one of the biggest things in Rush. Like that's kind of like easiest ways to like understand or explain it. Is like you, I don't know how I always like to call it. I always like to tell my tanks that they're dogs, and that I was walking them on a leash, and that they have that I'm giving them speed. I'm basically sending them out. I'm letting them go out for walks. But then I have to rein them in. And then conversely, I think playing Lucio defensively, like if you guys are kiting out, because they use ults, it's going to look like you speed until you get to, in my opinion, like a good corner. So like we just keep backing up, and we can swap to heals here because we don't want to give up this space, which I kind of went over last week, whenever the VOD review was. Remember how I talked about, like this is kind of bringing everything back together. Remember how I talked about like taking fights in space you want? So like, right,
Yep.
Let's say this is a fight we wanted, that's space we wanted, and this is space we wanted. If we're like, oh, we can't hold that, they're like winning the fight, but if we wait, someone's coming on respawn, you back up, and you're like, oh, this is the space we want, and now you're taking the fight here, like, that's so, like, it's fine, and then you can be on heals, and then as soon as you start to win, you can speed in. If you start to lose, you can speed out, but I'd probably die on this corner most of the time.
Oh, let's break it.
And then for his other abilities, I mean, it's swapping stuff, like, I think this, in an individual sense, I kind of already went over, but or on a team sense, but in an individual sense, I really like swapping, like, my things all the time. It makes it, like, super hard to be hit, which kind of was, like, about movement, like, plus also, you just learn your shot pattern, like, it's easier for you to learn the shot pattern than for them to learn how to hit you. Like, as you just keep getting used to swapping it up, like, because you'll have de-escalations and escalations of speed. His boot, don't always throw people into your team. That's like one of the biggest things I've had to teach people. Like, they're like, but I booped someone into my team, and it's like, yeah, you booped a Reinhardt closer to your Baptiste, and your Baptiste is now taking it. Like,
Sure.
A lot of the time, you honestly are just gonna be booping people away, or booping just for like damage. I think I normally want to boop away people from my supports, my supports most of the time, or my DPS sometimes. Otherwise, you can booping people in once you start to win a fight is always really good. That's where like you have to move, you have to have your movement in sync with your boops, right? So it's like you'll be looking for things like this, and then right, like a bad player just drops like that, right? Whereas like a better player hits. Is the bot gonna go back? I have no idea. Does she walk back? Of course she doesn't. Okay. But like a good player still stays up here. I think is one of the biggest things people need to understand. It's like you don't actually have to give up your spaces, Lucio, a lot of the time. Like you hit this boop and then you want to go right back to what you're doing. And then an even better player than like as they're like coming back down, they track the whole way. They get the kill and then they're walking out and then now they're like shooting the other team with us. So, his ult, I think his ult, people really misconstrue, and I did it for a while, where like people always think it has to be used defensively. It's really good defensively if like you know the other team like actually knows how to ult plan. Like in the hypothetical world, everyone's playing Overwatch well, and they don't have like an amazing ult plan, or even if they do, like be as a defensive tool as that. A lot of time you won't see teams doing that perfectly. Like if like they're doing grab drag and like you need to drop, like right, you want to sit through it. You probably want to take the first second or two, get to like 150 beat, and then you'll heal up all that HP that you were missing, and then you'll survive it. I think offensively, you shouldn't use it to start the fight. I think unless it's the only ult you have. I think people do that wrong. Where I like to start the fight like we amp speed in, we pull some other ult like Shatter or Grab or Noon or something, and then I beat after that. Because then, right, most teams, either they back up, so then beating means that you just keep running into them and you can go into space, right? Like, conversely to how I was like, oh, this is the space we want to play, right? At some point, you're going to start to win fights. And once you start to win fights, you're going to go into space they wanted to play, and they're going to hold here. And that's where, like, beating around this corner is really big if, like, it's only a 6v5 and they still have maybe an ult advantage. Otherwise, yeah, I think his ult's really good in the mid-fight. A lot of people don't use it in the mid-fight just because they misuse it. I think mid-fight or late-fight is when it becomes really valuable. I do not think it's a great early-fight ult because it's very, very, very expensive. So if you use it early and, like, everyone runs away from you or boops you or something, like, you get very sad very quick. So, don't think there's any amazing like ult combos you want to do with beat. I've liked like I just normally like to pair my own cooldown with it where I amp speed beat. Otherwise it's like there's no like amazing ult plan, unfortunately. There's no like nano blade or anything like that. It's just beat. I think beat blade is fine. Beat noon, beat blade. Honestly, grabbing the enemy team and beating into them. So like the whole team basically is like pretty healthy is also kind of cool. There aren't any like super duper amazing ult plans. I'm like, oh my god, Lucio beat was so good in that ult plan. So does anyone have any questions about the abilities or like how to use them most of the time and stuff like that? Or
you made the comment that some teams have a bad habit of having their Lucio, their Lucio just decides on the team to boop an enemy member into their team, and then the Rhine destroys their BAP, and then the whole team is upset. Outside of, I guess, incorrect usages of boop like that, I think you might have mentioned this, but I might have missed it. I assume boop is just mainly used as a peeling ability for your back line, or maybe even your front line in some situations, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think, it's mainly a peeling ability. And honestly, once you get really comfortable with it, you will start to use it just for, like, I don't want to call it poke damage, but, like, you use it for brawl damage once you get really comfortable with it. Like, you'll just start to weave it into, like, you're, like, shooting, like, you're just, like, pushing. Like, it's honestly fine to boop away the other team if they don't have Lucio, because you'll still catch up to them with speed boost. And it's, like, free damage on 3-second cooldown, right? Like, let's say your aim's bad, right? We're missing all these shots. We still hit the boot. That was pretty nice damage for, like, pretty much only hitting, like, a fifth of my shots. So, yeah. I would try to use it mainly defensively. And I like to use it pretty much off cooldown unless I know something crazy is going to happen, right? If you guys are like, oh, they have Nano Blade, I'm not. Then I'm saving boop, right? Because honestly, one of the funniest things to do against the Nano Blade is like you start to amp speed your team back, and as he comes up for that swing, you hit him back. And then he's just the saddest player alive.
Yep.
So.
And then the sad Nano Blading Genji that doesn't have a dash is just trying to, like, waddle at your team.
I love doing that.
So. Any other questions about abilities or anything so far that I've gone over? Maybe.
Double kill.
Okay. I'll take that as a no. So otherwise, I think that there's a lot of things right now that are kind of crucial. So right now the meta's like if you guys are playing Lucio, most of the time it's being played. I think in the most part it's being played in Rush. Some people are running in like these monkey Rush comps, but right. So in the Rush comp, I think one of the biggest things you need to understand is like you are pretty much tied to the hip. You are tied to the hip of your Reinhardt, right? Like that's kind of why I do the 2 tanks above your head, because like pretty much he's like religiously played with Reinhardt. And what people don't understand is like it's always you want to speed your Rein into either close enough to them, right? So if the fight's happening down here, like we get to this corner with just regular, and people misuse amp speed a lot. I don't think you should amp speed to close the first corner. So like, right, again, if that's the enemy and this is my team, like my team's starting here and we're walking our way up, like we're just on speed boost, and then here we like stabilize, get all our resources. We're amp speeding and we have to get to here.
Double kill.
That's like we pretty much have to get to here and we have to like start the brawl and start duking it out. I think people really misconstrue that a lot of time. They just like press amp speed all the time. Conversely, if your team likes to play second and they like start to a lot of teams are going to do that mistake, especially in like I would say anywhere below top 500, people are going to make that mistake, which means that then if you see that other team doing that where like they're amp speeding all the way from like I don't know if there's like more space on this map, maybe like out there. Jeez, just shots in the Neverland. But let's say they amp sped from there and they were trying to get to us. You just speed boost away regularly. They're going to be at that corner, and then you walk up on this corner normally, and then you can amp speed your Reinhardt past their Reinhardt sometimes, which is one of the funny plays, and like just chuck yourselves into their backline. So.
Hello. Oh, let's break it down.
Like that's big. Also with this comp, like I think you want to be in a spot like you Reinhardt are linked to each other at the hip. BAP is like linked, but he's not like on your hitbox the same way. So you want to be playing in a way where like if this box is your Reinhardt, like you have the opportunity to play behind him if you want. You can also keep like you have the chance wall ride. You get shot by like McCree in the head. You're like, oh, I'm kind of low. Then you start hiding behind your Reinhardt's body and shield and just throwing out some shots, pushing away the enemy team from him. hanging out, and then you go back to doing like what you were up to, doing damage, off angling, being annoying. So, does anyone have any questions about that? Like how to play him in Rush? Pretty much like how he's played Rush.
So when it comes to playing him in Rush, and I'm sure that I've made my fair share of mistakes here as the person playing main tank and also shot calling. What's the best way to? And this is a tricky question to phrase. So pardon me if it's phrased badly, but when it comes to like when amp is used, who should be the person that makes that call? Would it make more sense for the Lucio to be the person that makes the call because they're the person actually pressing E, they know their cooldown, so on and so forth? Would it make more sense to like practice getting your Lucio comfortable with like with having ownership of when amp is used, or is it more normal for like the main tank / shot caller to be the person to call for that?
Yeah. I think the Lucio should do it. It's one of those things, right? Last week, I think I talked about like ownership of your ult and ownership of your abilities, where it's like if you can try to do it, I would say the shot caller can do. One thing I've seen work pretty well is the shot caller can do the first amp speed in a fight, but the shot caller does not call out the other ones. Like,
right.
It's like, right, we start out a fight and we're like, okay, we're amping in here. But then you don't call for any of the other ones, and then it's Lucio's discretion because, like, you don't want to keep calling for things, and, like, he doesn't have it. Because either A, it frustrates him, or B, like, it'll frustrate you. It's just, and it's like, I don't know. Like, I think trying to call abilities after, like, they've been used, like, it's very easy to call ults, because, like, you can just press tab in the mid-fight and be like, oh, there's a check mark under his name, like, can we noon now?
Exactly.
But, like, you can't see, oh, he has whatever. So, yeah, that was a good question. Yeah, I would try to do, like, shot caller can call the first amp in the fight, but then let Lucio do the rest of his amps.
Cool, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned, yeah, it's totally logical, because there have been times where I've maybe tried to call for an amp mid-fight, but like you said, like, Lucio is like 3 seconds off, but like, the fight's maybe pretty hectic, and I can't like sit there and try to think, okay, has it been 3 seconds yet? Like, it's just too much to try and think of, especially because I'm not the person that's on Lucio, and then it just kind of ends up cluttering comms even when a lot of things are happening, like target calling, for example, mid-fight. So yeah, I think having that ownership is important past the initial amp to engage, like you said. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the other thing that's like kind of important about it is like I don't know how to phrase this. Lucio's like, I'm attached to the hip of my Reinhardt until my Reinhardt can't do anything or won't do anything, which like happens even on teams. Like if your Reinhardt gets stuck, right? Let's say his shield's broken, but you've just like done like a bunch of damage, and you're like, well, we still need to do something. Like you can go off with like I think Lucio's also really nice in Rush, like. Right, so we talked about playing a 5-1 split a lot of the time. Like, him and D.Va should always feel like they have the opportunity to do things with that. Like, in an example, I think it was Kree. Like, with Kree. It's like, amp speeding just Kree sometimes can be really worth it in certain situations. If you, like, find a really nice off angle and, like, you guys are able to, like, amp speed into, like, a flash fan or, like, just, like, a normal, like, opening an angle, and then after you get a kill, like, then you flash fan or you, like, amp speed away, and then none of the other teams are, like, really confused. It's, like, kind of cool. So that's why I also don't think it's great for Reinhardt to fall after the first amp speed, because it's, like, really awkward if your Lucio is literally nowhere near you.
Oh, yeah. I know how much Veggies and Fargon, who both play Kree on our team, love getting, like, nasty flash kills in, so incorporating Lucio amp with that in certain plays would be pretty neat.
Juicy.
Let's see. What else? So, some other stuff that I think is, like, kind of important. So, on Lucio, I think so the pairings you will see most often right now are going to be Lucio Bap, Lucio Anna, and Moira Lucio. I think it's really interesting in that I always try to amp speed with other ults, like almost every other ult. Window, it kind of feels awkward, but like with amp, like you want to amp speed with that nano play, so you're putting pressure at the same time. I think Moira Coalescence is a very good example. People, if you go on healing and you're in Moira Coalescence, like a perfect Moira Coalescence, especially on team, means like Coalescence is going like this, and your whole team is on this line in some way, shape, or form. You should just be on amp speed. You trust your Moira to heal you guys the whole way there, and you guys get to wherever you guys want to go. So, other pairings? Are there other pairings that Lucio's paired with? Not really. I guess there was Lucio Mercy for a bit, but the whole point of that was just you didn't have a diveable backline because you didn't have a backline. Making yourself really hard to kill is something that I think some people do really well and some people do really bad, and then the people who do it well, there's also like doing it bad and good. So doing it bad, right, is anytime you like full send yourself and you're in a spot where you can die, right? So like the reason why I don't like the Scrim matchup is because I personally never really got comfortable with like the flash distance always, which means like I would like keep breaking this and like I'd get him down to like 10 HP and then he just like flash fan me and I was like, I'm done with this matchup. So you want to always try to put yourself in a spot where, right, A, you're a projectile character, so like you kind of are okay with just like spamming out, but you do want to get closer, right? Like anytime you can like spam out from a close-ish area, it feels a lot better than, because then your projectile doesn't have to fly as far. Like if they have snipers, it's not as obnoxious, stuff like that. Thinking. Other than that, so I brought up that like there's good ways of staying alive and bad ways. There are people who like they hang all the way back, or like you're like hard flanking and doing like nothing, and you're like, oh, I'm pulling attention. If they only look at you for a second, you haven't pulled attention. Like if they're hard looking at you because you like chunked someone, like there's so many clips of me doing things. I call them stupid things now, but they're funny when I like to play a lot. Like my team's over here and I'm over here and I do a bunch of damage, and then like the crew will just start to chase me because I like half health them, and then I just like disappear. And I come back out and I keep shooting at him, like even in his direction, and it just like takes so much pressure off your team. So.
Why would you call that stupid? Because you're not actually assisting your team?
I think it matters on the situation. So I did it a lot just because I found it was funny. I think you can do it if you do it because you are the off angler, or you are one of the off anglers, and your team has accepted that. That's fine. But like I did it in circumstances where like the other team was like monkey or ball, and then my Ana just died, and I was like, well, I killed their Kree, so I'm doing something. And it's like, but I probably could have saved my teammate from something else. I think in Rush, it's nice. I think if you're playing versus a dive, it becomes a lot worse for you to off angle because you're most likely dooming one of your teammates because you're one of the big saviors. So.
Push off. Oh, let's break it. Damn!
I did have a quick question back to booping. You said you pretty much boop off cooldown.
Nothing's gonna.
But so like when you're, say you have like a Hanzo or Kree, who's shooting at these people that you're constantly booping off cooldown, like how do you boop correctly, I guess, so that you're not pissing off your hit scan or projectile DPS?
Yeah, that means, so I mean the way that I normally boop is it's gonna be things where like a lot of time it is just me, it is booping away, and it's like getting really, I think that's also, I guess, a very good thing to bring up is like when you learn your aim pattern, like once you get really good at it, you'll like boop and you'll always hit like all 4 of these shots, and then once you get really, really good, like there are people who like they always hit like at least me, probably the best thing that I got used to is like when I hit the boop is I would always hit two headshots at least, and it's like that's a lot of damage along with the boop. Pretty much booping them away means that you can't make anyone on your team angry unless like that person's 1 HP, and in which case you probably should have killed them, which just means aim better. But or that your teammate should aim better. Yeah, it's like one of those two. It's like don't feel bad about booping people. Right? It feels a lot better to boop someone away and they live than booping someone in and they kill everyone.
I think the only situation where booping someone away really annoys me as a DPS player is when I flash someone and they get booped away immediately.
Oh, I hate that.
Like, oh
dude.
Yeah, because you like spent all that time waiting for that Tracer to finally get in flash range. You chuck that flash at her, she's stunned, and then your Lucio just says bye Tracer and boops her away, and then she gets away.
Oh, let's break it. Damn!
I wish that did damage as well. Anyway, yeah.
Serve.
So let's see. I went over
Sorry,
Rush,
I had
Lucio.
to give you the hook.
I mean, I guess I could bring up. Do you guys so both main supports are here. Do you guys
Yes.
like watch any like players or streamers or like what content have you guys watched for Lucio? Or like, who do you, or like if like it's Owl, like what players do you think are good at Lucio, or like that you like try to emulate, or do you guys not really like care about that kind of stuff? Or
I have not watched any streams, just like YouTube stuff, but it's really hard to sift through like what's actual like good Lucio content and what's like Reddit Lucio content. So I've yeah.
You've seen some of SK's content, you said, Namai? Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think that was...
SVB, I think is the one that I also...
yeah, so I mean, I think the big, a lot of the people that I really like to watch a lot have kind of gone and come and gone. SVB's good. He's not like an amazing Lucio player, but he's a coach just in general, like a big like thought process coach and stuff like that. Something like that. So he's he's not like so I was kind of referring more so I think his videos are good because they're just like general coaching, but I think like for Lucio specific content I kind of miss. Let me see if I can find the videos. I'm sure they exist. I really liked watching old videos of like watching
Stanky.
Yeah. I like watching a lot of I have to find it. Funny Astro used to do his own videos a while back, like maybe a season or two ago, where he like pretty much went over his own games all the time and would just go over what he was doing. And like watching those I think is very useful. I think one of the best ways in general to learn any hero in this game, like he did in one of the VOD reviews he did, that's I think somewhere on his YouTube channel. It might be really old, but I'm sure the content's still like very relevant. This game isn't like super like game bending every like patch. The game isn't super changed, but like he talks through his thought process. I think that's something almost everyone should do. Like I don't think it's a Lucio specific thing. Like if you really want to get better on like an individual basis, like if you either talk it through or after you play the game, you go through and you like go through and remember why you thought certain things, and then you're like, oh, I thought wrong. I assumed too much or I assumed too little about like a fight. And you'll be like, oh, I'm speeding into the sky, we're like, can we push the sky, blah blah blah, in comms, but then like in your head it should be things like, okay, I'm speeding in, like, is this a good play, like, are we up in tempo or should we be backing up, type of thing. So I think that's really helpful. I think Funny Astro is one of my favorite ones to look at. From Owl players now, I still don't really understand how the Shanghai guy always gets so much value, but I think he's really good. I haven't watched a lot of his like individual play, but if you can ever watch his POV, he just always seems to get a kill or two, which to me is kind of hype, kind of crazy. But I think learning to balance out the playstyle, like not like kind of like what you said, where it's like Reddit Lucio, I just call it aggressive because I don't really like using like as much of the same terms, but like aggressive versus like just playing with your team. A good player like does both, where it's like, right, we're losing a team fight, the only way to win is maybe I full send on this Anna and kill her, like okay, like we try to kill her, or like if let's say we're already winning the fight, we're looking to look for like McCree High Noon, and like they're about to like they're gonna do something really obvious to try to stop the High Noon, like you're with your team to like protect him from it, stuff like that, like help your create. Because like when it comes down to playing on a team, I think playing on a team is a little different than playing on ladder. Like when you play on ladder, I would try to make as many individual plays as possible. Like I'm looking for those 1v1s a bunch of the times. Like I'm looking to harass people and just have people look at me and be really obnoxious. Whereas on a team, like you still do those things here and there, but you don't do them anywhere near as much. So it's like you learn that skill in ladder for the situations that does happen in team play. But in team play, it's very much more so like a controlled environment where you should know what's going to happen every fight, whereas because of just volatility of playing like ranked or like quick play or anything, it's a little different. So does anyone have any questions about anything I've gone over since last time?
Get back!
How do you deal with the so-called unstoppable comp of Monkey Ball?
Well, you shoot them the whole time, and then look, when they jump on you, you boop both tanks or one tank, and then you amp speed away from the other, and then they're both useless characters, and then they all die.
Wow.
They have no more damage mitigation after that point because you've broken bubble by the time you amp speed back, and their team just dies right there, and then you teabag them. And then you sometimes you sound barrier on the monkey's head, like his dead corpse. Like that one's a pretty good play sometimes.
All right, pal. Thank you for the excellent question. I wrote down every single word that Momboom just said.
Teabag.
Especially the teabagging.
Especially the teabagging.
If you don't get to the sound barrier stage, I'm calling shenanigans.
True. We have to build sound barrier first. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about what Momboom just went over?
Nope, not for me.
Double kill.
Cool. There's not a lot more to go over in the training thing. So a lot of the other stuff that I was thinking maybe we could even watch main supports play some Lucio, and I can just see what's going on. Like, 'cause I think there's a very big difference between lecturing and do it, especially in like Overwatch where it's hands-on. I don't know if you guys are down for that or not. But
I'm down unless our main supports are not down.
I feel like there's like a mental block sometimes for me when people are watching me live, but what I've done with Mercy is go and do a few games solo on ladder and then go over the video and kind of set a baseline and then send some baseline expectations and then do like 10 more games with those goals in mind and then do another review at a separate time. I don't know I know because we're doing the training today or the coaching today, so maybe not necessarily the thing to do today, but I would like to maybe possibly do that and schedule that for some other time.
Yeah, so since Momboom I don't think really minds like carrying the time over, I think what we could do is Momboom, do you have any like scrims handy, even from Avidity, of like a high SR scrim team where we can just kind of watch their Lucio play like a round or two? I'm just gonna general sense
go
of
over like one of your VODs
or that too. Just to see the things that you mentioned to us like in action.
And so we can get your mindset, like, because like you said, talking through like your mind, like what you were doing and why you made that decision, I think would be helpful.
And then on a later date, if our supports are interested, and I assume they are, then we can have like an individual session where we do pull like a VOD from a scrim, and we just take a look at like the Lucio specifically, and then kind of talk things over and make suggestions for improvements or adjustments.
yeah, let me see. I have to pull up the codes from last night for our video games. I think that's probably a better one for me because pulling up some of my old Lucio VODs. Let's see if I have any of them saved. I've like had to delete so many things because my computer's like storage is like real not amazing, and it's something I mean to upgrade, but then like you just get lazy.
Oh yeah, happens to all of us.
Let's see if I have any VODs, either of me or someone else. I have a whole folder of them saved. Yeah, look. It's not called coaching. It's called something else.
And while you're looking that up, and I don't know if it's even comparable or if this is an actual thing or not. Is there like certain goals or like stats or like just some kind of like hard set, just goal to have like in each game that we can kind of focus on?
Yeah.
Like,
I would try 8. Okay, yeah, I kind of get what you're going. It's kind of like how I brought up the 3 goals with like the team kind of stuff, where I try to do that a lot with individuals. Generally, I'd have to know what mistakes you make to make like really great goals, but general goals that I think are really useful are like on Lucio, try like, I don't know if there's a set number, but like try to always increase how quickly you're building your ult based off of doing more damage. Like every game, try to like do more damage than the last one in terms of time. I think is a big one up until you get to like a really good spot where like you can start. Oh God, I'm not ready to watch this.
Wait, they're on a boat? You panned down and I saw like 10 people on a gondola and I was like, wait.
That's the red shell thing. Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's my first one, is focusing on damage and then and then because of that your beat will build faster. I think learning to speed boost a lot more than you. So pretty much always it's speed boost more is like something that I force on myself until you feel like you're like barely healing. Or like not barely healing, but like it's not like you're playing like you would if you were like Baptiste, where it's a lot of right clicks and like mainly right clicks and then some like left clicks, right? And on Lucio, you want it to start to feel like you see the green around you a lot. You don't see the yellow around you a lot. And then for a third one, just getting used to like his movements, like dying less is probably one that'll come up from your movement. It's like the less and less you can force yourself to die, and there's no hard set number. Like I gave myself a hard set number in my bronze to GM, which that makes sense. It kind of made sense for me. I was like, I shouldn't die until like whatever. Like I should probably die like once or twice a game. But like if you want to give yourself a hard set number, it matters probably on what SR range you're at and like how doomed the game is. I give myself the rule of like if the game is doomed, like my team is just worse than theirs, I'm probably gonna die 10 times as my max. And if my team's better than theirs, I want to die like 5 times max. Is something I gave myself like on one side or like one round. So it's like if it's like a map like this, it would be like I only want to do that on defense or offense. So.
And then you said the speed like is 75% and kind of less 20 or less. I know that's not 100%, but
yeah,
like
it's like
I'm giving
like
give or take. That's
those
kind
are
of the
my general
goal.
numbers.
Yeah, okay.
You want to be more towards that, where like the healing's really only happening maybe if like your other support's low and you need to heal them, or like it's only happening if like your other support's dead and like you've been tasked with healing your team till everyone gets back. Like, which are like 2 very specific situations, and it's want to ever be like hard sitting on heals. Like, I'm kind of curious as to how Nine's Lucio looks. I'm gonna be honest, Nine's a player that I haven't got to work with as much as I want to, but he still plays it pretty well. But he makes a lot of mistakes that I think are things that I brought up here, and I think it's kind of funny. I'm trying to see what happens. So how do I end?
Big.
Oh my god, there goes our whole team.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Oh.
Okay. See, look, this is a top 500 player, and look at the aim. He hit like 2 shots. Come on, man. He did what? He only did actually 34 damage, because 400 of that was booping a Sigma. And now he's Mercy. No, dude, we definitely go back to the comp. There's no way this guy plays Mercy the whole night. There's no way.
That's what Amaya wishes that I would do.
I know. Can I just switch?
Yeah.
It doesn't work on the fridge, right? It didn't work.
Yeah, both Amaya and Deisel love Mercy very much. So
Not on Rialto though. I would have switched to Anna.
Fair.
Where's the King's Row?
That's too funny.
There's no number for King's Row. I'm so confused.
Oh, there's no code? That sucks.
Like it just says King's Row.
Oh.
Let's see if this works. There's a King's Row from a day before. Maybe that's fine.
Maybe.
I assume we play Rush here. Actually, no, we play this now. We've swapped off Rush, but the other team probably plays it. This guy's also GM top 500. So see, it's like a lot of like all his teams just chilling out, doing whatever dumb shit. Like, there's like 2 ways to do it, right? So he could have kept poking up there, but he noticed, and this is something that I think is very matchup specific. But like, so he noticed the reason most likely he dropped there is Hanzo, right, was one of those characters I brought up. Like Hanzo, I don't like fighting at long range, and McCree, I don't like fighting in short range. And those are like the 2 matchups I don't take like 1v1s or like even like poke with. Because right, all it takes is you getting logged in the head from back there, and you've like wasted a lot of your team's time. So like that's probably why he stops poking and he drops down there. Otherwise, normally you would just keep like shooting up here and chilling out, unless they have like a Widow or like they have the Hanzo. Ash, maybe you hide from. Give or take. Right, so I mean he's just staying with his core, right? It's pretty much speed. That amp speed is real early, man.
A little early, yeah.
But they don't die for it. It's only like a second or 2 early, right? But like, right, he's pretty much only been on speed until his team got to here, and they wanted to hang out here for a little bit. Right, so they're healing. And right, it's gonna be right back to just speeding around. He's gonna stop the heals, try to get his crit teammates. But we're just so much better than the other team. You know how it is.
True.
Avidity blue team. This team's also just real bad. Like, they're very indecisive. What are they doing? So see, he likes to take the isolated fight. I personally think it's really good to try to take isolated fights. Like, you should be able to 1v1 most heroes. So if you can ever get like a 1v1 like that with the Zen or Mercy, I'm down for that.
And you just movement. And you just recognize when to do that as you play, obviously, because prior to, you're saying you're attached to your Ryan's hip, but then you're taking these 1v1s just like when you see an opportunity.
Yeah,
and that just comes with practice, right?
Practice and like game sense or knowledge. And they're gonna get rocked here now. This guy's kinda. Yeah, but he's using his cooldowns pretty right. I'm gonna let this guy's aim. It's probably a little bit weaker than I would have wanted, but. Like, he's pretty much like, right, so he sped his team around, right, he's doing the speed boost a lot. I'd say he's probably not doing it. He's doing a decent amount of damage, right? Like, he's building up, like, good Lucio players build up beat at a similar rate to where the other supports build up. Other than, like, Bat Window and maybe, I guess, Anna and Moira, like, you should try to be able to be building up your ult a little bit slower or, like, just as fast as, like, a Zen or a Mercy or, what else is there? Like, Brig and... Is there another support I'm missing? Oh, he's not. Right, like, because that's the other thing I think, especially, like, until you get, I would say even to, like, Masters is probably where that happens, like, until Masters, I think most Lucios build up their beat, like, super slow. Like, right, like, he's 86, his Reinhardt's 94. Like, you should be able to build that up and by just, like, output dumping damage, I think. Like, where, like, I would say in, like, a Diamond lobby, like, this Reinhardt already built Shatter once, it's probably, like, 30, 40 to another one, and we're probably, like, 60 to a beat. That's just like a big difference. Because right, long term, that just keeps kicking. If you're doing 20% less every fight, that's probably like an ult or two a map.
And right, because you said there's like you want 5 fights.
Yeah. So you start to be down like an ult or maybe even 2, mattering on how many. Maybe you do get like double the fights you play at a full map. Yeah, this guy's doing a lot of. Yeah, and then right, like he's pretty much.
So generally, on King's Row, like you said, it's better to amp speed like to your like halfway to your second, or at your second point, like to your destination. So
yeah,
would you speed? So where on like King's Row? So generally, you would speed over to the statue, or I guess it depends on your plan. So can you run through that?
Where you're going. Yeah, it matters on where you're going through. So specifically for King's Row, I think. You want to just stay on speed boost till you get to here? I guess you can amp, but like you can just speed and walk under and come up these stairs and you get a similar outcome. I guess they'll back up quicker if you do that, which is obnoxious, but the other team kind of fucked up. But you amp speed this if you're not going to wall to cross, because like you have to amp speed so the rest of your team can jump, like how Reinhardt jump and shit like that. Otherwise, I would have speed boost. So, right, like other teams get kite back. I would speed boost, like if they're here, I'm speed boosting from here to get us to here. And then speed boost is going to start to end around here, but I'll still have speed. And we'll be on top of them because we know they don't have Lucio. If we don't think we can get them, so, right, like the way that their team was so late last time, that like, right, by the time they were here, there were already people in this window shooting at them. They were just backing up. If they're at that point, you need to like completely swap the plan to like, you guys are going to go here. Or you guys can come out here. I honestly probably, it matters on where the other team goes. So if the other team stays in this window, you want to come this way. If the other team goes towards this window, you come out this way. You just drop and you have people just under them so they can't like do anything. And you have like someone touching point that's like not going to kill themselves, not going to feed. Maybe like Diva touching point with like Bat being able to heal from like back here. And Diva's like touching maybe like right here and just DMing like this and receiving heals. The other amp speeds, like right, normally you get like the fights here and here. It'd be like you speed to here, and if the other team's like wants to fight you so bad, like in this area, you amp speed as soon as you get to this corner. Conversely, teams play really slow and get scared. Like, right, some teams do take this fight, some teams back up. They back up, you amp speed once you get to this corner. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to do it like the corner before you should be like in their face.
So I guess as a summary, you want to amp speed to put your Rhine into the team versus closing a gap to a destination, ideally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ideally. And then, well, if you're kiting, you'll have to use it like to a destination. But if you're engaging, you're using it to where enemies are. The enemies are the destination now. Because we want to get the hammer melee man to where he can smack people.
Right, so it's not
Otherwise, he's
necessarily
not
to
fun.
use it to like cross a choke or anything. It's better to use it to just get into.
Yeah, like especially
Okay.
I think teams wasted. So many teams they kind of did it, but I don't know if they. I think they were going to do it if they were given the opportunity, but they were gonna like amp speed this way. I think this is so useless if you're going from here to amp speed and they're just shooting you from up here. Like you want to amp speed like this way, most likely, to either get under them if they're playing up here and just like hang out, stuff
It's
like
a
that.
huge like melting my brain moment because like I feel like we've always just used Lucio to like cross hard chokes, and so this is gonna be new.
Yeah, you should just be able to cross the chokes with speed boost not
Right.
with amp speed. Is I think
Right.
like a big thing. People know how amp works, but they undervalue amp, or they undervalue both. Maybe they undervalue amp and they undervalue his like regular speed boost. Like they don't realize how valuable both are. They just assume that amp speed is pretty good, and they're like speed it's there. It's something.
So no amp speed out of spawn?
You do on Koth. I would say it's questionable on other game modes. In Koth you do because it'll be back up by the time you get there. Most of the time. Fingers crossed. I think you amp speed out of spawn if you don't think you have to use it by the time you get somewhere next. If that makes sense. Like, right, let's say like we cap first and like the cart's all the way over here, we amp speed out of spawn. Because like right by the time we're probably not gonna need speed until here, and it's gonna take probably 13 seconds for all of our teammates to get there. Right? And I think it's even fine to do it just for yourself if like the fight's still going on and maybe you got like Hanzo headshot to do that for the next fight. So, does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
And then just to piggyback off that question a little bit, if we get like a tiny bit more specific. So when it comes to using the amp speed to like get your Rhine, for example, like into the enemy Rhine's face and to like really start that hard engagement, I assume you to help to avoid the habit of like using amp too early. I assume you want to like get to the destination while still having like half a second ish of amp left. I assume that'd be like a good habit
Yeah,
to
I
do,
think
as opposed to trying to
that's
like cut it short.
That's a really good habit, and then I think this personally, once you master it, teams that aren't running Lucio and you're running Lucio, really good Lucios amp speed you there, and then the last second of it actually turns into amp heals, so any damage you took on that rotation is fully healed up, because amp heal is actually really useful in like split second situations. It's not like a great like overall healing tool, but it's a really great like very short like fix a problem cooldown. It's like really good Lucios will get down the high level, like they amp speed to where they need to go to, and then they still have a second left and they're on amp heals, and people are now like maybe they were like 450 HP on Reinhardt, now they're 500, and then you keep like shoving it up their thing, you keep forcing it on them, and like the other team's sad. So yeah, I would say that's a good habit to start to get into if you can. Is like anytime you can like start to anytime you can close distance and you still have time, swapping off of it and learning like when it's good to keep that amp heals on. It's really nice. So.
Cool.
Oh, and they're gonna die.
He was
They
1%
kinda
off beat. Poor guy.
Yeah. And they kind of took that fight pretty badly. You shouldn't try to fight where they're fighting. I don't know. If they want to like sit under them, they should like their whole team should have been here. It shouldn't have just been Kree alone. Like I was living on an island doing the right play. But oh my lord. You know, like Q buttons. Like a panda feed.
Is he alive? Oh, he's alive.
Yeah. So see, like, it's like finding things like that, right? He was attached to Reinhardt's hip, like, dealing with ball, and then, like, Zen's off on them. Zen gets caught alone, and then him and D.Va go for it, right? Like, that's, like, the type of thing that's, like, where you see those, like, situations break out. I wonder if they're gonna have Lucio or card bot. It's probably gonna be Lucio. Yeah. Oh my god, it's so many people. Not anymore. Cool, 222. It's now we have both teams on rush. Nice. So right, you kind of see it here. This is actually like a really good example of like in the mid fight, something that I can hop from both POVs, I think, which is nice. Let me have my hand up with 5. Nothing. So right, look, he's gonna amp. So right, red team here, their ult plan is so right, red team here, their ult plan is we're amp speed nooning. As soon as he presses amp speed, you should hear it as the other Lucio and amp speed your team back and away from it. And even if they died out of this, which maybe they don't, I don't know where that bomb's going.
I don't know. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Oh.
It was
Bomb combo you were
And that
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so they bombed, nooned, and amp sped?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so right, but like the amp speed was still good by 9. It's just, I mean, he can't stop his teammates from dying to Diva Bomb. But right, like as soon as you hear the other, if you're playing first, you need to have that play set up. But if you're playing second, it's very easy to have the trigger of like they're amp speeding in, and you know they close the distance when they do that. Amp speed away, and then they don't close the distance. Right, so it's like a neutral. And then you kind of see there. That's how you should fight Reinhardt, so that they're miserable and they can't do anything about you. Don't let her. If you let a Reinhardt smack you, you're most likely in the wrong spot as Lucio. You should make their lives as miserable as possible to kill you, especially if they're like the only person looking at you. I think it's like the funniest thing when like you can like get the attention of a Reinhardt, and they just get like infuriated with you. That's right. Like he's hanging up on height. Right. I'm gonna be honest. 9 likes to do a lot more boops in than boops out. So they're forcing fights in. Right. That's like right. I think as the fight goes on, amp speeds become just kind of more used off cooldown, because like once a fight really devolves, you want to start to use your cooldowns just to get big like value, right? I don't think it needs to be perfect value. So see like that amp speed, they go through the window so that now they're not getting shot by people in that window. And he's just beating up Reinhardt. Like this is like how confident you should get on Lucio. Like this is a GM top 500 player. Like the gameplay should look like this. It's like pretty much perma damage all the time. Like even if you look at his damage on the right, it's like pretty comparable to like most of the other heroes, right? Like obviously not Kree, but it's like really comparable to like pretty much the rest of the Brawl, right? You should be a damage threat in Brawl, right? Like he's pretty much the same damage threat as like a D.Va or a Mei or a Reinhardt. A little bit weaker. Probably a little bit lower of a damage number, but
Time to accelerate. Someone get that payload moving again.
and then they go for another amp speed. Noon. Yeah, and I think that's another big thing. There's multiple uses for amp speed, that I really think amp speed with a lot of ults is really good. Like, if you amp speed Shatter, like, you can amp speed your Reinhardt through the other Reinhardt if he's hard shielding, right? Like, in the Reinhardt, like, Shatter, like, shield holding type dance, whatever you want to call that fight. Mm-hmm. That's a really good one. Like, amp speed Noon is one you're seeing here. Amp speed Blizzard is, honestly, in my opinion, a really nice one as well. Like, there's so many good things that you can try to pull off, and, like, especially in, like, this Brawl comp, like, just amp speed, you either want it to basically do two things. It needs to enable something, right? So you're enabling by taking space, or you're enabling an ult by, like, right, with amp speed Noon, like, McCree's almost moving like he's, like, normal pace, instead of being stuck, right? Like, normally he's stuck in high noon. So.
Yeah, so when it comes to amp speed Blizzard, because in my brain it doesn't make as much sense as like amp speed Noon or amp speed Shatter. I assume the idea is you're amp speeding, taking away like as much space as you can, like space that could be used to maybe escape from the Blizzard, and then you Blizzard, I guess, during that amp speed when the space is like mostly taken. Is that the rationale behind it? Because I'm trying to understand why you would amp speed as opposed to just speeding. What does the amp speed do for Blizzard?
Yeah, I like to do the amp speed because, especially like, so amp speeds will start to get out of sync, hopefully, if your team's playing well. Like, right, like in the first fight, like the amp speeds are at the same time pretty much, right? But then after that, like as cooldowns go down, that'll happen less and less. So if you can use amp speed to get like really deep in them with Mei. So then A, you're hitting a better wall, B, like really good Mei players, it's not just Blizzard and right clicks, you're most of the time actually M1ing with your Blizzard, right? To get the double freezes or to freeze faster.
Yeah.
And that really enables that. Like the amp speed really enables like that type of play. Yep. So like the Mei players, and the Mei players understand that, which I guess is like a whole other thing. Like Mei players always think that, oh, I should just ult and then start right clicking. It's like, No, most of the time you should keep freezing them, especially if they're like going to get out of your ult.
Exactly.
The right click on the slow target is nowhere near as valuable as you actually freeze them, and then you can right click for free headshot.
And then you and your Kree right click like 2 or 3 times and they're dead. Once they're frozen, yeah.
Do you want to timestamp that part, Chris, for Luna?
Yeah, I assume she's gonna watch the entire thing because she loves watching these things, but I will timestamp it for her if I remember.
I'm so right, like pretty much like he's pretty much going to use. I don't know. You can pretty much see like they right like these players are also always pretty much using boop off cooldown, right? Like even if it's not doing an amazing amount of stuff, like the damage is just oh my god.
Oh no.
The Lucio diff.
Oh my god, he got smacked by Reinhardt.
Hate that.
Both things we didn't want to happen. Who's winning this fight? Not us. Maybe us. Maybe us on these respawns. Not us.
Damn.
Yeah. But it's like, right, like they're pretty much always using boop just as A, extra damage, B, like you can pretty much always get some sort of value, right? It's like a 3-second cooldown, so it does damage plus you can boop something away from your teammate or boop something into them if they're like winning, boop it away if they're losing. Like that's already like omega value on like pretty much one of the like shortest like actual cooldowns in the game. So oh no, let's play Mercy. So we're gonna hop over to other POV. Yeah. I think the biggest like mental shift if you're a Mercy player and you start to play Lucio is it's gonna be a lot of like, even with Brig, like you have to get your own value, which that might sound very wrong, but like the value comes instead of like you being in a good spot and like just like being able to damage boost or heal safely, or like with Brig, right? Like being in a spot where if they get on your teammate, like you're able to save them real quick or you can do damage. Like Lucio's very much like you have to get your own value by like getting those kills or denying space by being like threatening or by like stuff like that. Whereas like those other characters, most of their value comes from like the added value of their teammates. Lucio can do a lot on his own, and that's like almost his hidden potential or hidden value. If that makes sense.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Yeah, so my team is fine. Well, but I think this is very interesting that it's not, you've gotten to see a little bit of the rush v rush Lucio, where like it's Lucio v Lucio, and then when it's not Lucio v Lucio, it's very different. Like it's a lot of, you become very pokey, you play very close to your Reinhardt because you don't want to eat shit, and if you eat shit, you can just ask for shield or DM. Whereas like when you're rush v rush, there isn't a lot of scary poke, right? There aren't echo sticky bombs and M1s and Hanzo arrows. It's like you're really only worried about like the occasional pre headshot or like BAP damage. That's kind of a useless amp speed. What's that? Interesting. Yeah, that wasn't a great amp speed because you really don't want to use it unless if they were gonna go under them, that would have been kind of sick. I don't know.
I was gonna say, why aren't they going underneath them here? What's this rotation?
They're just lost, I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
The other team is probably, I mean, you saw on attack, they pretty much messed us up as well. The only reason they won the fight is because they came up with like 4 to 6 ults in a fight. It's like they don't seem to actually know how to play this versus the comp that like our team's playing. Yeah, they're real lost. You guys are getting all over the place. And Lucio's a really good character in that if you do this on Brig, you should do it on Lucio, and it's the skill of marking, where like a good Lucio will mark a target coming in, right? So most of the time, like in this comp, it would be like you're marking ball, right? Like your job is to like boop him away when he rolls in, or stuff like that, or boop away his pile drive so that they don't actually hit your team or they don't hit most of your team, stuff like that. This guy hasn't done a great job of marking. He's just kind of a spaz. But I think that's where we're good on like on Brig and Lucio to get good at, is like knowing what target is your main concern, and then once they die, like playing the fight normally, and like knowing that you should play the fight normally, but like if it's ever someone's job to like make that person fuck off, it's like your job the majority of the time.
What's the hierarchy of targets?
No, what
like
do you mean
people
by
diving your back line, like obviously protecting your backline. So whoever's going to be diving your backline, that's who you're going to be.
Yeah, I would say
And
that.
marking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
do
then
you mean
also
defensive marking or offensive or both?
It's kind of both. So it's generally defensive, but like if there's a 1 HP like target or like a very low target, like that's where again, right? We talk about like we send it on low HP targets, or we have an advantage in the 1v1, right? Like that's a skill I think is very useful to practice. I think that's when defensive target marking becomes offensive, and then marking in general also can be like very vague. Like so in some comps, like the old comp before this, we used to run Tracer before we ran Hanzo. And we used to run Brig instead of Mercy. And back then, Lucio's job, if like was into like the ball, Sigma, whatever, would be to mark Tracer. Just keep putting M1s in those like side alleys, because he can look at those side alleys and still be speeding the team. And also like I think Lucio's like really good at winning the 1v1 versus Tracer, because you just are pretty much unkillable, because for her to get close to you is what you want. But for her to stay far away from you is also what you want, because then she doesn't have the damage to kill you. If she gets close to you, you have better damage and you like healing. It's like this is a doom matchup for her. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh no. Right, so they're stabilizing. They don't really know where to go.
No, yeah.
So I mean, one big thing is if you're the red team comp, always try to find yourself a target that you want to get on. Its best ones are going to be Zen and Sigma. After that, it's like Hanzo, and then after that, it's just whatever your team can get. If your team can like freeze one of those other ones or like flash them, you focus those. Or if you just get enough free poke on them, but otherwise, don't be lost like these guys. They're just running around places and not doing anything. Just bad. Like they should have gone immediately up to that height and then gone in the building, or gone like right down Main Street and then into the building. Like, they were just out in the open eating shit. That's not how their team comp wins. And like when you play Rush, you really want to play like fast. It's like Lucio individually is big in that. It's your job to see everything that's going on and be like, okay, we need to amp speed. Like last fight, I'm not gonna roll it back, but like last fight, they like randomly ran right. First they ran here, they got Flux Dragon, they lived, and then they went from here to here instead of just committing. Like a good Lucio player like is sitting there like pretty much all the way back here, right? Because you're the furthest person back, and you're like, okay, like we're here, go in and under them, and then right, Cart was back here. We can get on Zen on Cart. We can get on Zen, and then it forces like Zen to either die or trans, or so right, one of those two things happens. Their team then has to try to take Cart because we flip map, or you could have taken the fight up here if like the Cart's too far away, but instead they like ran all the way back. They backed their team up, so they gave space. Echo just kept shitting on them the whole time. Hanzo kept doing damage. Sigma kept, and then they came up here back into the damage and have let the other team set up. Not good. Don't do that. And then like Lucio's big part in that is like you see the whole map. So honestly, like it's not that you have to call. Most Lucio players aren't shot callers, but they're part of the conversation of like pathing and positioning, because you do see everything, and you're like you can be like, hey, that's not a good play because we're just like giving them everything or we're giving them nothing. So it looks like maybe they're realizing they gotta go on Sigma.
So yeah, I guess I can say this to both our main supports, Amaya and Deisel. If there are situations where you're playing Mercy and we're running a similar comp to what they're running here, and you guys just have like a better POV of the early part of the fight than I do, and you happen to notice like a target that we can collapse on, and you have amp ready, you can always feel free to like make those calls or suggestions. I think Fargon actually did it while he was playing off tank for me like a couple scrims ago. He noticed an Ana like in the corner by the phone booth on first point King Zero, and we just rushed them and killed them immediately, and we won the fight off that. So yeah, if you guys ever notice those things, and if you notice it and also have the amp available for us to like make that play, then you can always feel free to mention it, and it can just be like a very quick conversation when the fight's about to start, or before the fight. That's probably the easier time to do that, but yeah.
No, I definitely, I think I'm going to feel more empowered to find creative ways to take space, and versus just S-keying now with it.
And obviously that's something that can be done by any member of our team. It would be nice if, like, I guess both the Ryan and the Lucio were on the same page, since they're the two that are going to be very important when that happens. But yeah, any member of our team that has a suggestion like that, you can feel free to mention it.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
Wow. I want to have that kind of faith in my off healer. Or my other healer.
Oh, this is my jam.
Yep, and then like on a smaller level, I mean, I'm sure you guys know what taxing is. Just know when you should do it and know when you shouldn't, and that's like do it if like the other team's basically dead, right? So like right there is a real example. Like the other team's all dead, they're not gonna take the fight till here. So if you grab them, I think it's gonna be fine. Conversely, it really matters on how valuable the person that you need to taxi is. So like right, if it's someone with an ult, they're really valuable. If it's someone without an ult, less important. If it's like someone big, right, like your Reinhardt or like your May or Kree, so more important, or like your Bat. So, and then like if you're going to taxi and it looks like your team's going to take a fight, yes, keep reiterating to them that they don't have whatever you are and then whatever your teammate is. Like, I think that's like something a lot of people don't do, or like they don't understand it. And it's like, right, then at least the onus wasn't on you, or the pressure wasn't on you anymore to like be like, oh, I went to taxi, and then someone's like, oh, I didn't know. You could be like,
oh, unlucky.
F.
Hate to see it. Tragic.
But yeah, the taxi point is a good one, because I think sometimes, and I'm sure even I might have like made a bad call in terms of asking our Lucio to taxi someone that wasn't necessarily like super like important at the time, and then that meant that we ended up being kind of separated, and the enemy team realized, hey, the Lucio and X person are both gone. There's a Ryan just standing there. Let's just run him over.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then I think another good point is it is really based off the fight state. So like if it's a 4v4 and you leave, you're making it 4v3. And I think that's like something really important that I like to think about is like if we've killed like 2 or 3 of them, I'm down to like leave a fight that we're winning and just like or like I amp speed my team into them and then we get all those kills, or maybe they're like getting a stagger and then I don't go for the stagger and I go taxi. I think something like that. Or maybe I don't taxi at all because it's really necessary. Like the fight's so close, it's like a 2v2 between me and Reinhardt versus like their Reinhardt diva, and like we'll win it long term, or like we'll be able to keep him at least enough killing a Reinhardt, which is good enough for me.
This is gonna make you feel better.
Right, and then I think you amp heals is really valuable if your team, if like no one's leaving the space, right? So right here, like right, pretty much everyone's fighting in like almost a little box. So if you're never gonna leave that box, and it doesn't look like you're gonna leave that box in 12 seconds, right? In the amp speed, in the amp cooldown, you feel free to amp heal, but that shouldn't happen a lot, hopefully. Oh, we got fucking booped into the flashbang. Kind of crazy. Combo.
In a way, he actually ended up helping, even though he was pushed up so much, because the Kreese stared at him for like most of the Deadeye.
Yeah,
either
so
way.
his team out and they.
Yeah.
We're smacking the fight down. Panda's smacking them.
Right, look at Panda swinging his hammer.
Clickers clicking. Right, and that's like at this point, like it's just amping to make sure no one feeds. So they keep going? No way, because it's a scrim. Yeah, nice. But I mean, basically, hopefully that helps give some perspective. Like it's those things in action, and then also there's a lot of mistakes in there as well that I kind of talked about. So it's like kind of a mix of everything.
And
like you can see good things and then bad things.
This is a 4-5 scrim?
Yeah, like 4-5, 4-4.
Okay, cool. Like just like Momboom mentioned at the start, you'll notice that even at this SR, you'll still see certain mistakes that are being made by either of the Lucios and their top 500 support players. So I'm sure that helps both of our main supports feel a lot better about certain times on Lucio that might be rough for them. Because it can happen to anyone. And there's always more to learn.
Chris, I have to be perfect all the time. What do you mean?
True. If you're not perfect for 2 seconds, then yeah, the world is exploding essentially. Everything is bad. But yeah, I think we can probably just wrap things up for now then. I know we've been going on for about an hour and 30, so I don't want people to get too tired. Assuming most people are still awake at this point. But yeah, I guess we can wrap things up and then we can probably go over those Lucio action items again quickly.
Yeah, so I think the 3 big Lucio action items you guys should try to focus on individually are like trying to get out damage. So specifically like focusing on those situations where it feels like maybe either, right, so that's practicing either in practice range, practicing in deathmatch, stuff like that. Just getting more confident in general will really help like your Lucio gameplay. Like, right, like you can see even here, like people die doing damage as Lucio, and it's like it's a mistake, but I would rather them make that mistake than like do like no damage and be building up like 1 beat around and like feeling like that feels a lot worse to me. Even if like they're they're the best communicator in the world, like I wouldn't take that player over someone who like learns how to actually play their hero better and take more risks, right? Because that is the min-maxing. Like Lucio's min-max really is about how much value you get out of his speed, how much value you get out of his damage, and how much value you get out of his like basically unlimited mobility. So the second action item is going to be more focused on his mobility. In my opinion, I like his mobility a lot. I think his mobility is really important. You should learn how to use it for yourself and your team. Or it's like when are these like this kind of edges into the third one that I want to have. But it's like, when do I want to look for these amps? Or should I just amp myself so I can finish this 1v1? Like, right, your life is always more important than everything else that's going on the majority of the time. Because if you die, you won't be able to press your buttons again. So like, if you have amp and someone's like beating you up, like you can amp heal yourself if you really have to. Like that's something you should get comfortable at, and knowing that like it's not a waste if you live, and if you didn't, you died. Like it would have been, right. 13 seconds is longer than you coming back from spawn and literally being useless. So that's very big. Learning the movement. Honestly, you can sit in those Lucio surf things. I don't know how useful they are really, because I was never amazing at Lucio surf, but I can tell you my Lucio movement is very, very good. So, but some people like it. I think that's a decent way to practice. Also, just like always jumping off walls, getting used to like that speed that you get off those walls, and then in conjunction with the first point, like doing good damage while being wall riding, I think is the hardest part. Where like it'll be really easy to learn how to aim with like speed and heals on the ground, like just AD spamming. But it's gonna become it's really hard at first, at least, to learn how to aim, where like you're jumping up and off the walls, and like you're looking at the wall for a second, and then you're looking at an enemy and you're spraying them, and then it's like back to the wall or something like that. My third big point is probably to focus on cooldowns and just figuring out how you really want to use them. I think Lucio's cooldowns are really niche in that way, and his positioning in general will kind of fall under this, where it's like you want to pretty much be booping all the time for damage. You want to figure out how you want to use your amps, and I think positioning wise, you're going to want to learn like how to be above your teammates without killing yourself. When should you not be above your teammates? And I think that's going to be the really important third point in my mind, because like you saw at the beginning of the first round where like the enemy Lucio was very scared of Hanzo, which I think rightly so. Like Hanzo's just annoying at long range. Whereas in most games, you would keep poking there. You have to identify like, oh, there's a Hanzo or an Ashe or a Widow, and I don't want to kill myself for free. Like, I'll wait until we get closer to be really obnoxious to them, right? Whereas like maybe if they're playing like Reaper Doom, like, right, you want to stay as far away and as high up in the air as possible, so they can't ever do anything to you. You can always boot people away from your team, like, and right, their Doom literally, like, I think people really don't understand, like, if you die to Doomfist as the Lucio and it's not like a very quick swap that he randomly did, like, you were probably too low on the ground. Like, it's the complete opposite. Where, like, with snipers, you want to be low on the ground. Doomfist, get up as high as you can. Get away from that ground. Like, don't stand anywhere near where that guy could end up. That's terrifying. So, I think those are really important. with the damage one specifically, I think you should feel confident winning 1v1s against every hero except for, I guess, the tanks. Because tank 1v1s really don't happen. Be really confident in every 1v1 except for Hanzo and Kree, and then even then, you can probably get the Kree matchup pretty good. Like, you should just learn how to win the fight from far, very, very far, or like learn how to bait out Flash or something like that, and then that matchup becomes pretty good. Honestly, Hanzo's the only one I like hard despise. So. Yeah, so that's basically the 3 action points for you guys, and hopefully, like, this has been really helpful, and like stuff like that. And if you guys have any questions or anything, always feel free to at me or DM me or bring them up now. You thought of them like recently or something. So.
I do have a random question because I think I wrote it down like at the beginning of this. When you said something about Lucio rollouts, and like I've known that there are like Lucio rollouts, but is it something like you practice like a Doom rollout? Like what is like? Can you?
What is a Lucio rollout?
Like, can you touch on that, or and how like we should?
Yeah, I think it's really.
Those?
Yeah, I think it's really important. So because of right on that first point with the damage, like I do want people to limit test. Like people will die. Like nine used to die like all the time first, and people would get angry. But I was like, he's learning how to get like more impactful kills, and then it like became better. And then because of that, right, you're gonna maybe kill their BAP, and then you die, which means now the rollout's gonna be like you want to get there as fast as possible. So you get a speed boost every time you jump off a wall. So you want to look something like this. It's like you'll come out here, you'll bounce off here to this pole, to this tree, to this pole, off this wall, tree, up, window, and stuff like that. Where it's like you're just constantly trying to make yourself as fast as possible to get back to a fight as fast as possible. Keep getting value, right? Like the end game goal is value, and you're not getting value until you're there. So.
Okay. So
yeah, or like don't hit the rollout. The other thing is like don't hit the rollout if you're amp speeding someone else with you, or else you're just leaving them behind.
So the rollout's more sort of coming out of spawn, not so much on an engage. Or
it can be on an engage, mattering on like if you want to be like the hard scout for your team, right? So in the right, you guys are generally playing Lucio and Rush. Like no one else has too amazing of scouting ability unless you really want your BAP to like jump, but. Like you could do things like you could start up in this top window and take a peek out. Like you speed your team to here and then you swing out wide up here and be like, oh, this is what they have. And then that's it. Like, yeah, it's not anything super complex on the rollout fight, but it's like more of a coming back to the fight faster. I think it's like, because you can cut that. That's like why Lucio's really good, right? Like if you die as Anna or BAP, like it's always going to be that long walk. As Lucio, it can literally be cut down to like mere, it can be cut down below 10 seconds where BAP on it most of the time 10 plus. So
again, that's as like you said, that's like one, I guess, really, really nice way that learning those rollouts can be helpful, and then practicing wall riding, because with a like with an amp sped wall riding rollout, that's a lot of words, but yeah, using your whole kit to its potential to get back to your team more quickly, it has a huge impact, definitely, and makes those deaths not as costly as if you were a different hero. Because I think in maybe at the end of Abitity's attack round, I think Nineheart died when he was like peeking that high noon in Kree, and then eventually got shot. He died, and I think he got back right when the next fight was about to start. His team never had to like completely disengage from the fight because he was able to get back so quickly. And they won that fight, I believe. So yeah, all good stuff.
If no one else has any Lucio questions, I did have just a really general question that I saw about the King's Row, like on an escort. But before we switch gears, does anyone else have any other questions about Lucio? No. Okay. On the first, they put the 3 people on the point, and everyone pushed up, and I noticed that sometimes a lot of times people will just like entirely put one person on the cart and all push up, even though the entire team's still walking back from spawn, or the enemy team's still walking back from spawn. Is there like a good rule of thumb to when you should set 3 people on the cart for maximum progression versus having everybody push up?
Yeah. I personally don't think it's really ever super amazing. So I think this is like a debatable point. I like almost always having one person on the cart. I think one person on the cart if you expect a fight, 3 people on the cart if you think it can close the gap before a fight would happen, right? So let's say we had a fight here, the cart was here, like 3 people here most likely gets you to the fight can only happen like right here or you cap. It really matters on where the cart is, and it's like a super complicated thing because let me get this round 2 complete off the screen. Because like in the hypothetical, like I mean this is a hybrid, but that means it ends in an escort. Like there's almost like very specific points where your team has spawn advantage and they have spawn advantage on second point, and like on all points, right? Like as you have spawn advantage up until maybe like this one of these corners, and then on like third point it's like you have spawn advantage until one of those corners is attack, and then it becomes defense spawn advantage. And you want to rule that. You also want to figure out how far a cart is, and you need it. It's based off of 3 factors: how far away cart is from capping, how the numbers in the fight, right? So kind of why I brought up with the taxing, where it's like if it's a 6v6 or even a 6v5, I still want to be with my team, right? Just to give us our edge or even. I don't want to put my team at disadvantage for no reason. Whereas like, let's say maybe the other team only has 2 people alive, I'm okay with just staying on cart, right? And like putting like 3 people on cart, hanging out. So yeah, otherwise, yeah, I think 3 people on cart maybe at the beginning of a escort point and at the end of an escort point can be fine, but in the middle, it's fine. You really want 1 person on because there's almost always a better spot to be, if that makes sense. Like there's like better space on the map than the cart, especially like the middle of most points.
Yeah, because like on ladder, I generally shot call a lot, so I want to know like what the rule of thumb is.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like Momboom said, I think different coaches have different views on it. And all the views are based on pretty sound logic, I would assume. But yeah, I think everyone will have different views on it. I guess we'll see what I end up deciding to do with our own team. But yeah, what Momboom said that does make sense, because yeah, I think having 1 person on the card, I can see it, as long as it's the correct person, because I know with Gru's team, Momboom, at times they leave the wrong person on cart, and you've been very, very direct in terms of saying that you want someone on cart that has some kind of mobility or a way to like keep themselves alive, assuming that you're playing against a comp that has some kind of dangerous flanker or diving tank. So yeah, I assume it matters which person is on the cart also.
Yeah, I mean, generally it's going to be Lucio or D.Va in the comp that you guys are playing. I would prefer D.Va, and then I would prefer to put D.Va on cart personally, and then I would because Lucio just feels so much better in that mid fight, or like early fight, and then like D.Va can always fly in. But Lucio can also move cart and just like speed his way in and touch a wall or 2, so.
Cool. I guess that was Diesel's last question. I don't have any questions, but do you guys have more Lucio questions? I think Diesel already asked, and the answer was no, so I assume we're good for now. Cool. Yeah, in that case, thank you for your time again, Momboom. It was great having you do a session with us. It was a bit different than the last one, since we were focusing more on a specific hero as opposed to our team as a whole, but we still were able to wrap in like some team-wide concepts that involved Lucio, so that part was pretty neat. But yeah, I thought it was very informative, and I assume for both of our main supports it was pretty informative too, and our other players as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. I'm like, my voice is probably getting worse than raspy soon.
No, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, this is like I do like I basically work like this all the time for like 2 hours when I do things like this, and like but the funny thing is my boss works with like little kids at my like actual workplace where I do this. He's like yeah, after 2 hours of yelling at kids because now things are going back to in person, it's like it's crazy.
Oh
and
yeah.
It's like, for me, it's not as crazy because I don't have to yell at you guys because I mean it's just me lecturing. And it's like I couldn't imagine like having like a bunch of like 6, 12-year-old kids like fucking saying dumb shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no thanks.
Even now, just after just after calming like pretty constantly for 2 hours in the scrim, even then my voice already starts to feel more like raspy-ish, yeah. And that's not even anything that's super, super intense, like yelling at kids for 2 hours. So yeah, I can't imagine. But yeah, we can let you rest your voice for a while, and we appreciate you making the time to help us out.
Cool. Sounds good. And I also just wanted to say, I thought it was a good idea. I forget who brought up. I guess maybe it was Deisel. I think that is a good idea of like doing, like, if you watch your own games, that's really good. Because I think that's what they said.
Yeah.
I think it's good for everyone, but like also like I like to do a mix of things. So I think there's two pretty proven ways in like esports that people get better. It's like that's one way, and then also watching pros and mimicking what they do is the second way. And then you want to bridge that gap, right? If you can do the same things that Funny Aster is doing, you will at some point reach his rank if you're doing the exact same things for the exact same reasons. So it's just like learning how to do that. But I thought it was a cool idea. Maybe at some point we'll do like individual VOD review if that's something that people want to do, because I think you also brought that up as like an idea almost.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I'd be down to try that out in the future. I'll talk to both Deisel and Amaya and figure out, I guess, when they'd like to, because I assume that they'd want to kind of digest this information and start to apply it when they play either individually or in scrims or both. So I assume after they're able to do that for a certain period of time, then I may reach out to you again, Momboom, to have you go over like individual VODs with them. We could even do it in a way where we do like a 2-hour session where the first hour is Deisel or Maya and the second hour is the other person, and we just go over the VOD, both of their individual VODs that way. And
so we can wear your voice out again.
Go ahead.
So he can wear his voice out again.
Oh, exactly. I'm sure he enjoys it. Cool. All right, well, I guess we can all split up for now. But it was great meeting with all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Momboom. Thanks, Momboom.
Thank you.
And just like Momboom mentioned, if you guys have any random questions that you'd like to ask him, he said that his DMs are open for random questions. So feel free to reach out.
I apologize ahead of time for all the questions you're about to get.
it's fine. Yeah, I already got at it. Oh, thank God. That was a question. All right, sounds good. I'll see you guys around.
Sounds good. Have a great weekend, Momboom.
Yep, you guys too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.